it's a scary thing when a brother does not have at least somebody in his life that he can go to and say, look, I just did some stupid shit.
That's real.
This is what it is. Or even better, I'm thinking about
doing
some stupid shit, right? And so we have a host of leaders across the country that are connected to the Campaign for Black Male Achievement in our network. And what I always say is that, particularly when you are leading on a high level, that if you are not utilizing mentors,
yes,
executive coaches, and a therapist in your life on a regular basis, you are going to have some challenges, right?
What's happening, y'all? This is Mike D with Black Fathers Now, where we're bringing the village to the brothers. Every couple of weeks, you can look forward to a quick inspirational message or a thought-provoking guest with knowledge and wisdom, all geared towards helping you be the best father that you can be. We're bringing the village to you. Now it's your turn to do something with what you learned. All right, y'all. Let's go. What's going on, fellas? This is Mike D with Black Fathers Now. And yo, we have a dope conversation that's coming down the pipe today. Really, really cool conversation with a really accomplished brother who's doing some really good things, within our world. And so the brother that we have on today, he's a husband and a father of 4. He's the CEO of Campaign for Black Male Achievement. Under his leadership, the Campaign for Black Male Achievement has leveraged more than $212 million in national and local funds for Black male achievement. We're really going to dive into that for sure. But prior to that, man, he spent almost 2 decades as a youth development professional, community builder, and advocate for children and families. Fellas and ladies listening too, because we know y'all like to peek in on what we're talking about. Let's welcome my man, Shawn, the CEO of Campaign for Black Male Achievement. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing fantastic, Mike D. Thanks for having me. As we were sharing in the preamble, we've been trying to do this for probably close to a year now.
It's been a minute.
And I just firmly believe nothing before it's divine time. And so I'm supposed to be speaking to you and you to me on today in this moment. And I think we met at the Black Enterprise Martin Men gathering. Is that where we met?
No, actually, let me tell you what's funny. And this is honestly taking it full circle. I live in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And you actually were in Knoxville for a conference. It was something that was going on.
United Conference, one of our partners. Yes.
That's right. But the funny thing is, you and I connected like the week after you left Knoxville. So we physically never connected. And so I don't know how somebody mentioned you or mentioned the conference, and I started looking it up, and I saw Campaign for Black Male Achievement. I'm like, well, what is this? This is cool. Then I was like, hold up. They're in Knoxville like last week. I'm like, let me email this guy. So I emailed you, and you and I started a correspondence back and forth, only to find out you were in the city a week prior. And then, but then we kept it going, and I've been on some of the calls, the monthly calls or whatnot with Campaign for Black Male Achievement, and so it's been awesome. I've been following a lot of what you all are doing, and we're gonna dive into that in a little bit. But we have not physically met yet.
Okay,
we're gonna make that happen though.
That day will come, and thank God for social media and technology, because I feel like we have.
Absolutely. Well, look, we're connected, whether it's in person or virtual. We are connected. Well, but so getting started with this particular interview, before I jump into a brother's story, I always like to have the brothers give a shout out, to give a shout out to their village, to their support system, because behind and beside every great man is a village. And so we need to make sure that we give our village, our support system, just due. And so first I want to give you the platform to give some shout outs to your team and the folks that mean a lot to you there, brother.
Wow. So many folks have poured into me that we can take up the entire hour with me giving shout outs, right? And so certainly have to start with my mom, Deanna, strong Jamaican woman. who believed, grew up in an era where she believed not in a timeout, but in knockout. Right? And she immigrated from Jamaica, was a strong, independent woman. She and my father were never married. And she just demonstrated through the way she lived her life and just taught me about sacrifice. She taught me about resiliency. She taught me about making a way when there was no way, but also about enjoying life, and she exposed me to so much. And so she is right now living her best retired life in South Florida.
Wow.
I got to thank certainly my wife, Desiree, my divine mate. And, you know, quite frankly, and I love the transparent conversation we were having in
Absolutely.
the beginning. And this is my second marriage, right? My first marriage, 7 years, married my college sweetheart, and, learned the lesson of, you're making a decision with your head and not with your heart. And when I got out of that marriage, I was a madman, crazy man. I just want to say my nickname back in the day was the Love Dove.
Oh, wow. Well, look, hold on, the Love Dove.
You can run with that. And I wholeheartedly believe that God said, I got plans for this brother, but if he continues in the behavior and the way that he is living, he's not going to make it, right? So I want to give him, in one woman, his wife, the eventual mother of his children, and his mistress, right? And so over the last 25 years, and, quite frankly, did not think that monogamy was possible, right? And nothing that I'm bragging. I'm counting that just like I'm counting my clean time, right? Part of my story, I have going on 30 years of recovery, September 1st, clean from drinking and drugging, but certainly have to thank my wife. And, we've been together 25 years, and she reminds me all the time. She said, the reason for our longevity is because of her, right?
Oh, wow.
Shout out to my 4 children, Nia, Maya, Cameron, and Caleb, that has, brought me to this conversation with you in Black fatherhood. They've taught me so much, right? It has been the most rewarding experience and challenging and learning and growthful experience. And it continues, right? It never ends. And then I just have a host of mentors and, folks like Reverend Alfonso Wyatt and Jeff Canada and Susan Taylor, and I can go on and on. There's one sister, Terry Williams, you may know, who's the author of Black Pain, right? And really began to address the mental health challenges in the Black community, right? And I remember 2 things I want to lift up Terry Williams that she said to me over the years. And one, and I used to run a youth newspaper in Harlem when I was working with the Harlem Children's Zone, and I had her come to speak to my students, my writers and advertisers. And, sometimes someone is telling a story and you think they're telling it for someone else, but it boomerangs and it hits you. She said something to the young folks in the room, and she said, if you are not walking out the house most days and you don't have butterflies in your stomach because of what God is calling you to do and the leadership talents that you are called to do, you are living a pathetic life, right? I thought it was like, gosh, she's being hard on the kids, right? But that's true, right? And so she said that, and that stuck with me. And one thing she also said is that what you think is your curse could be your calling in disguise.
Whoa. Park that. Say that. What you think could be your curse.
Well, what you think is your curse could be your calling in disguise. And that's a synopsis of my life, right? I've had adversity and advances and the issue of perspective, right, and how you look at things. And so, and want to lift up the team of the Campaign for Black Male Achievement, and we got thousands of leaders across the nation that support us and lead this work. We're just a catalyst in this movement of Black male achievement. And there are a host of, we're talking about fatherhood, brothers like Kenneth Braswell at Father's Feet, Joe Jones, Center for Urban Families. And there's so many, right? Mm-hmm. Once you start listing folks, people listening, oh, you didn't mention me, right? I want to say charge it to my head and not my heart. But I have been blessed immeasurably with having some amazing people in my life, right? Mm-hmm. Both as mentors, as mentees, people that have seen things in me that I have not seen in myself before. I saw them in myself, and many times it was just a word. The right word at the right time can have a transformational impact, right? And so, I can go on and on, but certainly at the top of that list, my mother, my wife, my family, Reverend Alfonso White and Jeff Canada, right, are amazing mentors, and guys like the late Richard Murphy and a John Simon, who ran a youth program that when I was 12, 13 years old, and I thought I wanted to sell loose joints on the corner of 80th Street and Amsterdam Avenue in Manhattan, and catchy slogans, pass me by, you won't get high. And I didn't have to be doing that, but 2 blocks away was a youth program, and they had a basketball team and basketball tryouts. Got involved there, changed my life, or the trajectory of my life. And 12 years after that, I was the executive director, 12, 14 years of that youth program.
Wow.
And so, and Jeff Canada also, who is the founder of the Harlem Children's Zone, right? And so, yes, as you said in opening and reading my bio, and I think, sometimes it's important for us to hear our bio. Mm-hmm. Because we're in the midst of our work and there's a voice in our heads, and this happens a lot as a father. The voice tells you, I got 2 voices. I don't know about that. Right?
I got about 3 or 4 voices. What you talking
about? and one voice is telling you that you're a great dad, and you're doing fantastic, and Shawn, you didn't grow up with your father, and you are doing fantastically, right? But then there's another voice that says you are falling short, right? And every shortcoming and everything that is not going right in your family, in your life, that's because you're a bad dad, right? And I always say that, it comes with fatherhood, a lot of thrills and spills, right?
Big time.
That it's important to continuously work on yourself. I know that when I am working on myself and I'm aligned and I'm in purpose and I got my mental health and emotional, social well-being relatively in check, I'm a better father. Mm-hmm. When I don't, I am more impatient, right? I am more judgmental. I am when, my children do something that reminds me of my shortcomings, right? That just seems magnified. And so fatherhood and Black fatherhood is just beautiful, right?
It is.
I'm grateful that I have grown up in an era that we've seen a transformation, particularly with Black men, in our ability to tell each other that we love each other. Mm-hmm. To drop the mask and to be able to say, I'm scared, I'm hurting. I had separate conversations with my father-in-law, my late father-in-law, who died of cancer back in 2004. My biological dad, who I never lived with, he eventually got married and left that marriage. But in separate conversations, they used the same terminology of how they were feeling when they left their families, right? And it was like really surreal, eerie that they, in separate conversation, they both described it as they felt the walls closing in and they left, right? And they grew up in an era as Black men, you had to say, I got this. I'm strong. I can't let another brother see me weak. I can't go to somebody else and say, look, I'm struggling in this marriage. I'm struggling as a father, and I need help, right? And so they just left. Because I said, you know how many times I feel like the walls are closing in? I've grown up in a era, and I think my experience in recovery, therapeutic communities, Narcotics Anonymous, and sharing and building community has helped me with
coping,
being expressive. But I have a whole network of men, Black men, where we're able to share, hold each other accountable, cry. I'm sure you're familiar with Brother Jason Wilson, who is in the network, who has a book out, Cry Like a Man, and what that is doing for us as fathers, right? And so I just think that, and I don't even know how I got down this thread when I was talking about my father, and father-in-law, but just being grateful that I'm in this era where we have a Mike Dorsey that has a podcast, Black Fathers Now, right? Part of one of the mantras of the campaign for Black male achievement is we got to become masters of our own media, right?
Yes.
And so I know, because I've published, I've done what you're doing, publications. One of my publications was called Proud Papa for African American fathers. The consistency of doing that, right? The what you are doing, showing up for the interviews. Will people listen? You don't know, but you're being consistent and you're putting it out there, and that there's one person that may listen to one of your episodes. It might not be the latest, might not be this one. It might be an episode that you might say that, God, that was a bomb. Someone hears something and it literally saves their life, right?
Can I tell you the thing that you're just saying, and this is what I want the brothers to really pay attention to, is the fact that it's not about the width, it's about the depth, right? Because the thing is, we all want to go wide, right? We all want to spread out and touch millions and millions of people, but you don't realize you have the ability to impact millions of lives with one person. I was listening to, actually, it was on a previous interview that I did not long ago, and a guy quoted Tupac. And he said a line from Tupac, and I might be throwing it off a little bit, but he said that Tupac stated that I might not be the brother who can do it, but I might be inspiring the one who can.
That's right.
You stop and you think about that. And the other part of it is this: if you can go deep with one individual and you change that individual's life, their family changes. So that means you've changed a family for generations to come just by impacting one person. Yes. Right. And what you just said also about the notion of you don't know who's going to listen and what things fall on. And basically, as a speaker and as a person who presents information, the only thing that I can control is what I put out there. I really can't control how people take it. Right. But I will tell you this. It is a beautiful thing when you go online and you start looking at your data and you realize that there has not been one day since I've dropped a podcast that somebody has not downloaded it at least once. I mean, it's amazing to think about that. Every day since this thing has been going on, somebody has listened to something as it pertains to Black Fathers Now. So to your point, it's not about the numbers, it's about the impact. And if you can impact one person, that one person, you might not be the one who changes the world, but you could be talking to that person who can. You could be inspiring that person who can.
And brother, thank you for that. The power of story. And I know that you're interviewing me, but I have to ask you, what inspired you to start this platform, this medium of Black Fathers Now?
Wow. That is a really great question, man. I'm going to tell you, I was doing, before Black Fathers Now launched, I did a podcast called The Fit Urban Life Show. And so I did 122 episodes of The Fit Urban Life Show. But as we got towards the end of it, you know, it just really, I just didn't feel the fire with The Fit Urban Life Show. So long story short, I shut it down for a few months and was just kind of doing a lot of reevaluation of, you know, where I was, what direction I was going in. And one thing, as ideas were popping, one thing really kept coming to the forefront, and it was fatherhood, right? It was fatherhood. Everything that I was doing literally kind of revolved back to this whole concept of fatherhood. And on a personal level, I was fortunate to grow up with, my father, and I've had grandfathers and uncles and people in my life. But I also grew up, and when you mentioned the whole notion of addiction, I also grew up in a household in which, my father struggled with the disease of addiction. So I saw, a great person, but then I also saw how, the disease of addiction can take that great person and change who they are. And so being the kid in that particular scenario, I saw a lot of what I did not want to be. And so for me, thinking about it from that perspective, as I became a husband and as I became a father, I always thought back to that feeling of what I didn't want my kids or my wife to feel at times. And so to that point, it made me also want to, pour into brothers because, I've also been blessed to have mentors and leaders and coaches and uncles and, and my father and I have a great relationship, to this day, and I had grandfathers. I had all of these strong men around me, and they were able to pour into me. And I was like, this whole concept of it takes a village to raise a child is extremely important. But the thing is, we don't technically live in villages anymore, but we have technology. So why not take technology and bring that village to the brothers? Hence the tagline of Black Fathers Now, bringing the village to the brothers. And so honestly, I just opened up my network and started contacting brothers and asked them to share their stories as it pertains to fatherhood. And what's interesting, some of the brothers that I've interviewed aren't fathers, but they have some level of insight and wisdom that Black men can take and apply to their life. And so the title Black Fathers Now is about bringing insight and information and wisdom to the brothers that they can take and apply to their life right now. So it's not about just theory, it's about action.
And, I have I mentioned one of my mentors, Reverend Alfonso Wyatt, right?
Mm-hmm.
He does not have any biological children, but he has mentored and fathered hundreds, if not thousands, generationally. Right?
Wow.
And so you can be a biological father and not be loving, protective, and prayerful, and prophetic, and speaking into your children's lives. And you can not necessarily be the biological or have biological children, but you can father. And I think that we have to elevate that more. And, you said the village does not technically exist in the way I think that the African proverb arose, but there is community.
Absolutely.
There is networks, and our ability to be connected to one another and to pour into each other. And so much of it is telling our stories.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
It's telling our stories. And I think that's what's really important. Like, so I am uber transparent with my children. So they have, they know the good and they see the bad. And plus, when you're living with someone, you
can't hide. Yep. You can run, but you can't hide.
You can't hide that anyway. Right. And so, yes, people know the story of me and the campaign for Black Male Achievement and what we have managed to do. But people also know that, when I was a 24-year executive director of the organization that I grew up in, the Dome Project, I had to make a most pivotal decision in my life. This is way before fatherhood, right? To surrender and go into recovery, right? And it mentioned, and I respect that you said the disease of addiction, right?
Yes.
And why this conversation around fatherhood is real important, and particularly for men that have not grown up with a close, in proximity example, right? Whether in the home or in constant relationship of what a responsible, sober man and father and how that person shows up. This could be real fearful. Mm-hmm. It could be real fearful. And I had someone tell me, this guy ran a therapeutic community. And what he said to me, he said, addicts are some of the most creative, talented people, as you were describing your father, that I have ever come across. But that fear of their own talent causes the self-sabotage and then the addiction, right? And we know and every father should read this poem, right? This should be a fatherhood anthem, right? And while Nelson Mandela gets a lot of credit for it, Marianne Williamson was the original author that talks about it is not, our greatest fear is not our light. It's not our darkness. It is our light.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And as fathers, we need to be in community so that we can help each other grow into our light, right? And grow into our light. And so that's why I really appreciate what you're doing. And when you talk about Black fathers, I think a transformational moment for me in my career was when I launched back in 2006 this news magazine called Proud Papa for African American fathers, and there was a genesis story around that, right? And at the time, I was the vice president of a national mentoring organization, and I'm sure you've experienced this. You come home for the weekend, and you got one foot in the previous week, and all that went down, and you didn't do, and you're focusing on that. The other foot is in the next week coming up, what you have to do, and you're not present, right?
Yes.
And I remember this weekend when that's where I was, and I was impatient, and you talk about, crying over spilled milk, literally crying over spilled milk as a dad, right? The spills and the thrills. And, at the time, my oldest daughter and I, we would periodically give each other notes, right? And, in her lunchbox, she would do a note, or I would give her a note, and she would leave me a note and on my desk. And I remember hopping on the commuter train that Monday morning, like feeling like a horrible dad, right? And feeling like, God, I'm stumbling through the dark, man. I don't know what I'm doing, right? And so I'm on New Jersey Transit, and I go into my bag to do work, right? And I pull out this note, right? And there's this note from Nia that says, you're a great dad, Shawn. She didn't say Shawn, she was great. Although my firstborn son, I have twin boys, Cameron, there was a period there he was into calling me Shawn, right? Back in the day, that was like, you'd be fetching your lips, but that's a whole nother story.
That's a different story.
And so there was this note, and she was like, talked about how great a dad I was, and all the kids at my school would love to have you as their dad. And here I am, Monday morning, commuting to work. I'm like crying, right? And you know that when you're commuting, you have you're in the same car, you see the same passengers and commuters, and folks looking at me like, man, this brother needs another job, because it is, he crying
on the way to work.
But I was crying because what it exposed for me was that I needed help, right? And I think that one of the things I've been gifted to do, that when I am in pain, it blossoms my purpose, right? And I get creative, and I create stuff, right? And that's when I had the idea to create a Proud Papa, and created this newspaper that wasn't focused on celebrity dads, but everyday Black fathers that we see. But the media, right? The media wants the world to believe that we are pimps, players, perpetrators, but we are loving fathers. We are proud fathers, right? And so I took that moment and created Proud Papa. And quite frankly, at the time, I didn't even realize that there was this growing responsible fatherhood movement, right? And So I have people, and I did it for a season, similar to the podcast that you originally did, right? And it was for a purpose. It was for a season. People still keep asking me, when is Proud Papa going to come back? The middle pull-out pages were youth voices, and it was called Middle Passage Press. And it was able to, and I still have people today that I love providing what you're doing, a platform for others' voices, for other stories, right? And so that was the story of a Proud Papa. And I've just seen over the years so much across the nation that, particularly for Black fathers, a vehicle for us to voice our victories, our defeats, right?
Yes, all of it.
Yep.
Because let me tell
you the whole story.
You got to. Let me tell you, when I one of my speaking topics is this concept called double down on you, right? And when I start talking about it, one of the things that I use to give the story is I talk about a puzzle, right? Each and every one of us is basically a big 500-piece jigsaw puzzle. And so when you look at that jigsaw puzzle, there's some good pieces. There's some pieces that aren't so good. There are pieces that you put out front, but then there are pieces that you try to hide. But the thing about a puzzle is that puzzle is not complete until all those pieces are there, right? But there's another caveat to that. If I hand you one piece to a 500-piece puzzle, you can't define what that puzzle is going to look like by looking at one piece. Most of us take one piece to our 500-piece jigsaw puzzle, and we lead with that and that alone, but we're not telling the whole story. And so when people take a step back and think about themselves, when you start to look in the mirror and realize you're this jigsaw puzzle with some good stuff, some bad stuff, some stuff that you're embarrassed about, stuff that you want to hide, but then there's stuff that you want to shine, you want everybody to see. But all of those are pieces of you. Not one of them defines you entirely, but you also are incomplete without all of those pieces being in place. But we have to come to grips with all of that so that we can be that holistic person and walk forth with the power that we've been ordained to walk in.
That's good. That's good, because we're both. And one of the things I always say is that we are infinitely more favored than we are flawed.
Yes.
We're both, right? But how you show up depends on what you focus on the most, right?
Hold on. How you, because I'm going to tell you, I came across a quote that you dropped on social media not long ago, and it applies directly to this. And it was a quote that you left from Robert Smith's Morehouse Commencement. You stated, you dropped one and you said, between your doubt and your destiny lies your action. And that's from Robert Smith from his Morehouse Commencement. With everything that you've been saying, everything that you're talking about in regards to, even when Nelson Mandela was mentioning the notion of we fear our light, not our darkness. What you just mentioned kind of falls in line with that. Between your doubt and your destiny lies your action. Talk to us a little bit about that, because that's something that you put out there in regards to something going on with Campaign for Black Male Achievement.
Sure, right. And what I love about that quote, right? So the $40 million was really important, right?
Yes.
Transformational, right? But everybody is not going to get that $40 million, right? That was for the 2019 graduates, right? But everyone can take that quote, right? And the full quote, the other part of the quote was, first he said, between your doubt and your destiny, and the fact, admitting that there is doubt, right? Sometimes we try to fake like we're going around like there is no doubt,
puzzle pieces.
I don't see it, right?
So the puzzle pieces.
So it's your action, right? And so you got to do something, take that first step. And then the second part of the quote was that between our community and the American dream lies your leadership, right? And that resonated with me because one of our core mission mantras of the Campaign for Black Male Achievement, since we're doing this visual, this 10-year anniversary impact report, is that I always, whenever I get an opportunity to share, is I say, there is no cavalry coming to save the day in our communities, right? That we are the iconic leaders that we have been waiting for. The curators of the change we're seeking to see, right? And that we all have, no matter what your story is, right? We have something in us that can be contributed to our greater good. But it will never happen in a vacuum, right? It will never happen. It happens like when Shawn Dove and Mike Dorsey connect, right?
Absolutely.
And I bring my greatest good and my favor, and I connected with your greatest good and your favor, and we also acknowledge our flaws.
Yes.
The sum of the parts are greater than the whole, right?
Synergy.
It's a synergy, right? And it's momentum. And so much of what we've done over the last 11 years for the Campaign for Black Male Achievement, right? And this isn't new work, right? This is 400 years work, right?
Yes.
I in the campaign too often get credit that where it's not due. We were, and I was in the right place at the right time with the right partners, with the right leadership to catalyze this present day moment, right? But this is 400-year work, right? And it's really about building community. It's really about creating spaces where we can collaborate, right? And that's why it's so important, like these fatherhood groups coming around the table in a circle of trust, or even having that one person, that one other dad that I can't tell this, what I'm going through to anybody else, but I can let him know, right? Because I trust him. And he's been through this. And I can share, right? Because in recovery, they say you're only as sick as your secrets, right? And so the power of relationship is phenomenal. We have certainly put a great deal of resources on the ground. But when we talk about Robert Smith and that $40 million, the relationships that he is engendering through his work and his Black philanthropic mission. It just so happens we do an annual restoration retreat, and I'll send you a link to it. Last year was the first year on his property in Lincoln Hills. We're going to be in Colorado. We're going to be there next week, where he opens up the space. We bring 40 young men from across the country, from 7 cities, fly fishing, horseback riding, archery, workshops, and getting into nature, yoga, meditation. And so, that quote, certainly running with that quote. One of my other, that's why I love, Twitter is like the digital underground.
Yeah, it is.
One of the things, and I think that dads, Black fathers, we, and all people that have grown through traumatic scenarios, that broken crayons in the right hands can still be used to create a life masterpiece.
Broken crayons in the right hand.
Right. And so in the right hands, right? And for me, that's in God's hands. Right?
Absolutely. Me too. Absolutely.
Like in mentors' hands, right? It can be broken, but how you use it, right? And too often we feel broken, right? And we need to be placed and used in the right hands. And the picture needs to be put up like, this is what you created with your crayon, that is you, the color. Look at this, right? And once we get these little victories and these successes, and you be like, oh, snap. I'm refraining now. I don't know if there's profanity.
It's all good. You're good.
Okay, all right. Okay, so, but also I did that, right? And so one of the stories that I tell, and I have plenty from my children, right? And oh wow, it just so happens I have. So I'm in my study, right? So this journal is from 2011, right?
Okay.
And in this journal, where is what the heck happened to it? Somewhere in this journal is supposed to be Oh, wow. What happened to that? That's weird. It must have fallen out.
It's all good.
A taped up dollar bill.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's deep. And there's a story behind that taped up dollar bill. So now I got distracted because I want to find out where that dollar
bill went.
Dollar bill, right? So, but let me just tell the story behind it.
Okay.
Because it's a true story. I want the dollar bill. So I want to be on an OCD mission after this.
I know, right? Once it's done.
So my twin boys, they might have been around 4, no more than 5, right? We're having a spat, right? And my wife Desiree and I, we were in this phase where we were trying time out, right?
Uh-huh.
So I separated the boys and I sent Cameron up to his room, who's the firstborn twin, and remind me to tell the Caleb Breach story. I don't know how much time we have, but
oh man, as long as you want, brother, we good.
So Cameron, went upstairs in his room. He was having a temper tantrum, and there was a dollar bill in his room, and he ripped up the a dollar bill. And their older sister Nia came out of the room, right? So she hates this. She loves the good stories that I tell about her, but she hates this story because she's seen as the antagonist, right? And Nia's the firstborn, learned how to ride a bike in one day on honor roll since first grade. The hero of the family. There was a season when Desiree and I would tell the kids to do something. They'd be like, "Let me get back to you. We'll check with Nia first, right?" But anyway, Nia comes out of the room and she looks inside Cameron's room and she sees a ripped up dollar bill and she comes downstairs and she does a little tattletailing and says, "This is what Cameron did. He ripped up the dollar bill. It has no value," right? My middle child, classic middle child, she's stuck in between her hero big sister and these cute chubby twins, has always been searching to find a way, has had trouble in school.
Mm-hmm.
And Maya, who was downstairs and saw this scene, Nia came down and threw the pieces of the dollar bill on the counter and said it had no value. Just something I will like never forget, right? She got up, I think she was watching Dora the Explorer, and she got up and she went into the kitchen, right, and opened the kitchen drawer. Now, Mike, I don't know what your kitchen drawer looks like, but this is what
everywhere. It's stuff everywhere. Yeah.
Batteries and wires and stuff long going out of stock that you'll never use in the kitchen. And she rummaged through the kitchen drawer and she found a Scotch tape, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just taking the risk and searching, right? Because this is some messy work, right?
Mm-hmm.
She got the Scotch tape and she taped up the dollar bill. And she said, "Here, Dad, it still has value." Right? And that was a transformational moment for her because she has always lived in the shadow of her sibling.
Wow. And
to have the gumption to do that. And what it told me is that so many of us feel like, and so many of us fathers and Black men feel like that ripped up dollar bill, that we have no value, right? That we need folks to take a risk to go into messy drawers, right? Risk in getting poked with nails and tacks and stuff in that drawer and find some tools to help heal and help mend and help to put us together and have value, right? And in that process, we have to shift the narrative because what she did was she defied the expert of the house. The expert said, this has no more value, right? And so we had to, and she had to be the disruptor and say, you know what? I'm ignoring what popular opinion is saying, that no, Black dads, in this case, I'm using Black dads, have value. And so much of our work, I'm not looking for my wallet because is emblematic of us taking the risk of finding value where there is no perceived of value at all. And that is the story, one of the stories of fatherhood for me, right? I'm just like, I'm tripping now because I'm looking, I'm like, where's that dollar bill? But anyway, so you see how easily I can get distracted. But I think that advice I would give to all of the dads listening, the stories of your healing, the stories of your family's healing is all around you, right? It is in your story. It is in your children's story. It is quite often arrived and derived from painful and hard moments.
Absolutely.
Right? And how we bounce back. And resiliency is one of the core principles of the Campaign for Black Male Achievement, right? And I'm of the era, with the Timex watch. How do you take a lick and keep on ticking, right?
There you go.
And it's not how far you fall, it's how high you bounce, right?
Absolutely.
That's the message, right? That undoubtedly there's a dad that's listening, that is feeling blue, that's feeling down, that is feeling discouraged, right? For whatever reason, right? Maybe relationship, maybe job, it may be a child struggling, right? And, sometimes I was reminded last week, when your children struggle, you can't take all of the responsibility. Mm-hmm. Just like when they succeed, you can't take all the credit.
Amen.
Right? You need to balance that. But there's a dad listening that needs to hear that in your pain and in this moment, if you keep going through the process, don't quit, right? There's purpose in it, and tell the story, right? And even as mentors, right? We folks need to hear our story of struggle just as much as they need to hear our struggle of success, right? And so I'm going to stop there because I feel like I've been on a rambling rant for.
It's been good. It's been good, but I'm going to tell you, man, like everything that you're saying, I love it. Usually I'm the talker. Like I'm naturally the talker. And so when I have a brother who has a story, who has something to say, I'm just here to listen. And, I'm here to present to the Black Fathers Now family, different perspectives, but a brother who has a story, who has some insight. And, you mentioned the whole concept of storytelling. And, for so long, there were gatekeepers to the media. Right. There were gatekeepers to getting your story put out there. There were gatekeepers to allowing your story to get told. And we had to know this person, to know that person, and get behind this one and have this relationship and pay this one just to get the opportunity to tell your story. And even then it was vetted, it was edited, it was whitewashed, it was, sanitized down to the notion of you almost don't even recognize it. But now in 2019, we have the ability to tell our stories and go directly to the people. And so that's why I'm such a huge proponent of telling stories, of sharing stories. And back to the thing that you mentioned about, interviewing and bringing on other perspectives. It's not just about me. I'm not this Nostradamus, all-knowing, omnipotent figure myself. But I know one thing is that I might not have lived it, but there's somebody who has. There's somebody who's experienced that. There's somebody who brings a different perspective and a different angle to the table that will have the ability to connect with someone listening to this. And as you mentioned before, somebody listening to this needs to know that you are enough. Somebody needs to know that you're going to be all right. Somebody listening to this thing right now that's struggling, that's dealing with, some type of hardship. And guess what? We're all dealing with some type of hardship. It might not be visible. It might not be financial, or it might not be a health thing or a relationship thing.
Don't be fooled by Instagram.
Don't be fooled by Instagram. There are filters, fellas. There are filters. And somebody took that shot that you see 40 times before they got that one picture on Instagram. Don't get it twisted. And so we're all dealing with something. But to that point, by us sharing our stories, and you mentioned the notion of sharing the struggle. The thing is that then humanizes people. What I've come to realize is that nobody connects to perfection. Nobody can connect to perfection because we're not perfect. And it was a title. CeeLo Green had an album years ago, and it was titled CeeLo Green and His Perfect Imperfections. I was like, honestly, that is the most perfect title I have ever heard, because truthfully, that sums me up, and that sums up all of us if we're honest about it. But a lot of times we're not honest. We're looking, practice makes perfect. That's a farce. Nobody's going to be perfect. Practice makes you better, but practice is not going to make you perfect. And the thing is, your connection, your connectivity to other people are your imperfections, because that's what they can see. Nobody can sing like Luther. I mean, I know I can't. And so, so the whole thing is connecting to him. I mean, I like to listen to his music, but I can't connect to it because ain't no way in the world I'm going to sound like it. You know what I'm saying? But the brother who's down there on the corner, who's all off key, I'm like, yo, I can dig that because it's imperfect and I can relate to it. So we have to do a better job of sharing those imperfections, because those are the true perfect moments.
Ooh, that's some good stuff you right there, right? That's gold, because what I continue to learn, right, as a father, right? Because look, today is July 9th, 2019, right? I've never been on Father's Day, right? This is every day is training day.
Absolutely.
No matter how old your kids are, right?
Yes.
And what I've learned over the years and still continue to learn, right? It's real hard being a father, a parent, and trying to be a perfectionist at the same time.
Yes.
It's real hard if you are a control freak, trying to be, because stuff gets spilled, toilets get stopped up.
Yes.
Limbs
Lord.
broken, plans, you're trying to get out, so if you have to be able to create this adaptability and ability to go with the flow, right?
Yes.
Some days I'm good, and some days, not so much, right? And I do think that what we have to do as fathers is we got to kill that condemning voice.
Yes. Yes.
That tells us constantly that we are falling short, and we're not doing what we could do, right? Because that voice is on the loop, right? But there's, I was talking about that other voice earlier. We got to focus on the other voice that, like, wow, you're doing great, right? Wow, you've come a long way. Yes, you may have fallen, but you've gotten up, right? And we have to, and I'm not, and by no way saying that we should condone bad, poor, detrimental behavior as fathers, right? But I do think that we need to kill that judgmental, condemning voice that we often have, right? And the problem is, if we don't get in scenarios like this, even if it's like one-on-one,
absolutely,
we stay in isolation.
Yes, that's dangerous.
We don't get in places where there's trust, when we could drop the mask. I say vulnerability is the new sexy, right?
Dude, you said something earlier, and I wrote it down, and it was from the recovery program. You said you're only as sick as your secrets.
Yep.
Right. I mean, and so that literally lies in the forefront of what it is you're just talking about. You're only as sick as your secrets, and so therefore, if we stay isolated, if we stay to ourselves over here, and we don't have this environment, we don't have this in community, we don't have a platform, or at least we don't have a person that we can share these things with and get them off of our chest. I mean, you think about like a soda with a whole lot of, carbonation built up, and you shake it up. I mean, the thing is ready to blow, right? And so we have to figure out a way to let some of that stuff out, whether it's individual, whether it's through therapy, whether it's through counseling, whether it's through just a community. We have to do that, especially as Black men, because, the machismo that we kind of rolled on from back in the day is gone. And that was, honestly, an Achilles heel that we had for so long. I mean, like you mentioned, the brother with the platform about it's okay to cry. I mean, I have a little girl and a little boy now, so I mean, I'm apt to cry at any time. I might be about to cry now. I don't know, but
I was holding back tears a little bit earlier. And, that's the kind of organization I run. I got people on my team that have joined. They said, "God, I've never been with an organization. People crying so much, right?" And
it's therapeutic.
That vulnerability, and it's a scary thing when a brother does not have at least somebody in his life that he can go to and say, look, I just did some stupid shit.
That's real.
This is what it is. Or even better, I'm thinking about
doing some stupid shit,
right? And so we have a host of leaders across the country that are connected to the campaign for Black male achievement in our network. And what I always say is that, particularly when you are leading on a high level, that if you are not utilizing mentors,
yes,
executive coaches, and a therapist in your life on a regular basis, you are going to have some challenges, right? And I got mentors, I got executive coach, I got a therapist, and then I got some people in my life that I trust that I can say, look, I just did some stupid stuff.
That's right.
I'm thinking about doing some, or you know what? I'm scared, right? And so our ability to drop the mask, right? And that's what Fatherhood Now is about, right? That's Fatherhood 2019.
Yes.
That's not Fatherhood 1970, 1960.
Or not even Fatherhood 2000.
That's true. That's
29. Yes. I mean, it changes that rapidly.
This is a recent and we still got a long way to go with, the distorted gender norms and toxic masculinity, what it means to be a man and who's supposed to do what in the house. We got a long way to go still, but we
Absolutely.
have and it's our generation.
Yes.
And platforms like what you are doing with Fathers Now, Black Fathers Now, that's really important.
Man, I have to jump in on this because you mentioned the concept of if you're leading on a high level, and a high level can be subjective, right? I mean, you could be leading on a high level within your family or a high level within an organization where you got millions of people and billions of dollars at your disposal, leading on a high level. But you mentioned that if you're leading at a high level and you don't incorporate mentors, executive coaches, and therapy in the mix of it, you're selling yourself short. And brothers, I want you to listen there. Listen to that. Mentors, executive coaches, and therapy. Now, I will say you might not be at a point in which maybe you can afford an executive coach, but you can read the books of executive coaches. You can listen to podcasts of executive coaches. You can befriend, folks who are executive coaches and, just build relationships and have casual conversations, in that regard in which you can start to get the wisdom of executive coaches. Mentors are everywhere. And when I say mentor, you don't have to have the quote unquote title of a mentor. A mentor is someone who is where you're trying to go, or someone who has been through what you're currently going through, or someone who is just a few steps down the road from where you are. And what's interesting about mentors, I've come to find mentors who are younger than me. Like, it's interesting. We always think a mentor has to have a few more gray hairs than you do, have to have a few more wrinkles than you have. But I've come to find mentors in various spaces that might be half my age. It's interesting. I might find a mentor who's a teenager in something. I mean, to be completely honest, mentors are everywhere, but you have to be open to seeking that. And then as it pertains to therapy, fellas, therapy is needed and necessary. And we have so much healing that we have to do, because if you don't have these things incorporated into your life to lead on a high level, you're setting yourself up for failure. And this is also a conversation for myself. These are things that I need to make sure that I'm plugging in the right places so that I'm fully ready for, leading at a high level. Because truthfully, and this is a good conversation, like you mentioned earlier, how it's funny when you brought a speaker in to speak to the audience, the story ended up hitting you. And it was almost like they were speaking directly to you. This conversation that we're having, yes, the brothers are listening and the ladies are listening in too and all, but you're talking to me. It's like, I need this. I need to make sure that I have these things in place so that foundation is there, so that, I'm prepared to lead in the way that I know God's called me to lead. And so I appreciate you for dropping that, because you're talking to me.
So, wow, there's so much there, right? So one of the things, and I really love the fact that you shared, and for your listening and watching audience, that you have mentors that are younger than you. Mm-hmm. Vulnerability is a key word, but humility is also.
Mm-hmm.
One of my leadership mantras, mission mantras, is to be humble as a lamb, yet bold as a lion, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it takes humility to be open to receive an insight and learning from someone that's younger than you.
Yes.
And a lot of times it's around technology, right?
Yep, for real.
So that's real important, right? The other thing that I would want to just lift up, is the vulnerability, the humility. And what's interesting, last year at the Cities United conference in Knoxville, I was just in Knoxville in May at the Alex Haley Farm.
Oh wow.
So right now, Mike, I'm like, all right, we got to do a fatherhood conference at the Alex Haley Farm.
Yeah, we're gonna make it happen. We're gonna make that happen.
So
yes.
Let's put yes. Be careful what you declare. Just might appear.
It's gonna happen.
So during the conference in Knoxville last year, there was opportunity, and I'm blessed to be one of the founding board members of this organization called Cities United that works to create healthy, whole, safe, hopeful communities and eliminating violent deaths of Black men and boys, and working with mayors and community partners. But we had this panel, and we were asked to say a word to Anthony Smith, who is the executive director of Cities United and would be a fantastic guest on this show. And when it got to me, and it was like, I had to ask him 5 questions. And these are questions that I'm grappling with, right? And everything that I'm sharing with you is not on high, right? I'm dealing with it also, right?
Absolutely.
But these are the 5 questions, right? And for all for Black fathers, right? These are 5 Black fathers now questions, and the first question is, what are you doing about your purpose? Right? And you have a purpose. What are you doing about it? Sometimes we run from our purpose, right? Sometimes we do self-sabotaging shit because of we know what our purpose is, right? So what are we doing about our purpose? The second question is, what are we doing about our power? And we all have relative power and influence, and sometimes we just give our power away, right? Sometimes we abuse our power. But what are we doing with our power, right? You're a prime example. You using your power of media and platform and creating this, right? Trying not to editorialize each question, right? The third question is, what are you doing with your privilege? And some may say, oh, I'm a Black man. I don't have, no. Your gender gives you privilege. How are you, your position and where you are with your education may give you privilege. What are you doing with your privilege, right? And as a Black father, as a Black man, right? And issues of patriarchy and how are we handling our privilege, right? And what are we doing about privilege, right? And the last 2 questions are, it's kind of like, when you're in the water, in a pool, there's a dip in the pool, you automatically get into the deep end, right? The last 2 questions are deep end questions for all of us, right? And the fourth one is, what are we doing with our pride? Right? And that's a whole show right there.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Yeah, it is.
With our pride. And the last is, and we were talking about this, and the whole issue of getting and asking for help and therapy and all of that is, what are we doing with our pain? Right? And how are we healing, right? And how are we transforming our pain into purpose, right? And you never, as a Black father, or as an individual, as a man, put a period on those 5 questions, right? They're iterative, right? But self-reflection is powerful, right? And in this room, my mornings of burning incense and drinking coffee and those are questions that I am always grappling with. And some days I'll have answers, and some days and some days I'm struggling. But what are you doing with your purpose, your power, your privilege, your pride, and your pain?
Ooh, fellas, mic drop. If I didn't feel like I was going to break the mic here, I would pick it up and drop it on the ground, because what are you doing with your purpose, your power, your privilege, your pride, and your pain? And honestly, those are rhetorical questions for you to think about in your life. See, we ask questions, and a lot of times people want to quickly give an answer. Fellas, I want y'all to sit there and marinate on this. You probably just need to push pause right now and think about it again. What are you doing with your purpose, your power, your privilege, your pride, and your pain right now? What are you doing with that? Brothers, I want you to think about that. I mean, those are deep. And as you take those 5 questions and you apply them to every aspect of your life, think about that through the lens of fatherhood, through the lens of marriage, through the lens of business and entrepreneurship, through the lens of community, through the lens of your church or your religious institution, through the lens of your interactions with other people, through the lens of being in America at this particular time, through the lens of being a citizen of the world. I mean, just taking a step back and thinking about that. What are you doing with your purpose, your power, your privilege, your pride, and your pain? And if you can answer those questions in the moment, and honestly, those things are going to change, because tomorrow is going to bring something different, right? Mm-hmm. Next week, next month, next year is going to bring something different. But if you can answer those questions in the moment, at any given moment, you're probably on the right track. Fellas. Now, before, because I mean, literally, man, we need to allocate like 8 hours to sit down and just talk with you, because you're just so full of wisdom. But
come on a part two.
We're going to have to get a second hour of power. But before we get out of here, man, I want you to definitely kind of lay out, kind of give brothers an overview of Campaign for Black Male Achievement, some of the things you all have going on, how the brothers can check you all out, different initiatives, anything that you want to share, and anything else that you want to kind of put out there that you have going on. I want to give you the floor, brother.
Well, thank you for that. And I'm just so blessed to lead and be the CEO of the Campaign for Black Male Achievement, which is a national membership network of men and women that are committed to improving the life outcomes of Black men and boys. And CBMA, the Campaign for Black Male Achievement, we exist to ensure that these leaders and organizations, that their work grows, that it sustains, it has impact. And I wanted to say that CBMA was started at the Open Society Foundations back in 2008, and it was supposed to be a 3-year term limited campaign, right? And here we are celebrating 11 years, right?
Wow.
So, we build community, right? We bring leaders together. We have field building activities. We publish something called The Promise of Place that looks at 8 building blocks in cities, that how do you increase engagement for Black male achievement in cities. We understand that it takes cross-sector leadership, right? That there is not one group, organization, or sector, right? That we bring together folks from community, from the not-for-profit sector, philanthropy, business, and government. And our Promise of Place mantra is that, your promise of place is wherever you decide to take a stand. We do an annual gathering called Rumble Young Man Rumble at the Muhammad Ali Center.
In Louisville, yep.
In Louisville, that is the preeminent Black male achievement gathering in the nation. We have been doing it since 2011. We have declared Louisville, at first with the Muhammad Ali Center, but Louisville as the epicenter for Black male achievement, right? And it's a place for us to come together. And so much of what we talked about and the essence of our conversation today, it's not a conference. It's not a convening, it's more a revival-like place for healing, right? Because what we have come to realize the cavalry, the iconic leaders, the men and women, we need healing.
Yes.
We need support. We need a place where we can exhale. And so Rumble Young Man Rumble, we do that nationally. We also do it regionally. In September, we're doing it in Detroit. One of our core strategies is a BMA Health and Healing Strategies that's led by Dr. Phyllis Hubbard, where we deal with and elevate the health, healing, and wellness of our leaders. We launched that about 3 years ago in partnership with the Oakland and Sacramento Unified School Districts. Strategic communications and storytelling is a real focus of our work. And I say, at the core of what our work is about is really elevating an asset-based narrative around Black male achievement. And,
wow.
The stories, right? And the premise is that there is nothing wrong with Black men and boys in America at all. That it is the systems, the structures, the white supremacists, policies, and racism. That's the problem, right?
Yes.
And not Black men and boys. We also believe in strategic partnerships, right? That there's no one organization that is going to change things. One individual, right? The day of the Lone Ranger, I would venture to say never existed. So strategic partnerships across sectors. And I would also say that our, theory of change, right? We want to change the outcomes and we want to move the needle around data. Strong leaders plus strong organizations equals a strong field of Black male achievement. Until we get to that place and continue to get to that place, and we're there, but we got to keep growing and being more effective. We're never going to see the outcomes that we want, right? And we also focus on measuring and promoting what's working. Right? What works engine, right? We have a partnership with a website, bmafunders.org. I encourage your listeners to go there. The website of the Campaign for Black Male Achievement is blackmaleachievement.org. I would encourage all the listeners, men and women, to go to our website. Here's a shortcut. It's cbma.org/join to become a member of the network and find a place and figure out where in your city, your town, and connecting with others to be part of this movement, right? And I will say that the next level vision for CBMA, and it was, and what I didn't get a chance to describe is that, we spun off from the Open Society Foundations in 2015 into an independent entity, right? And something that's very rare to happen, particularly for Black men in philanthropy. Me and my brother Rashid Shabazz, who was with me for 9 years, we were together at the Campaign for Black Male Achievement. We were able to negotiate a $10 million deal to spend, I call it leaving Egypt with a little gold, right? But what was the driving force for that was I had this vision of creating or transforming the Campaign for Black Male Achievement into a corporation for Black male achievement.
Wow.
That would be an endowed philanthropic social enterprise that would lean into this issue for the long haul. And that, we really need $1 billion for Black men and boys, right? Because we are in a $1 billion fight with $1 million mindsets, right?
Wow.
We need resources. And so we're having this conversation, Mike, at a time where I am remembering what was the genesis and what drove me. It was this vision of the Corporation for Black Male Achievement, and realizing over the last 3 years that, okay, you've done all this, Shawn, and getting comfortable, right? But stopping short and realizing what the true vision was. And so I'm in the process of remembering what I forgot, right? That was the reason why. And we do this sometimes, right?
Yeah, we have to.
We so, we let good be the enemy of our great. And that I got to make sure that I take this, our 10-year impact report and make sure that that's done.
Yeah, that's right.
It's what's in store, what's next, and realizing that the vision for the Corporation for Black Male Achievement, and I have to, and I thank you, keep putting myself in positions that I say this out loud.
Right? Yes.
Because sometimes, so even the spinoff, right? I whispered that to myself for a year, right? We need to spin off. We need a Corporation for Black Male Achievement. And it wasn't until I said it, and I remember the moment that I did it. It was in December of 2011 in Miami. We were at a grantee convening in a closing circle, and we were going around and closing. That's the first time I said it out loud, right?
Wow.
I said, whoa, since you done said it, you might as well, keep saying it, right? And that was in 2011, and it took another 4 years for it to actually happen. But this power in words, right? And I think I bring it back to fatherhood, that one of our roles as dads is to be prophets and prophetic in our children's lives, right? And speak what should be, right? And sometimes that's hard, right? If we're not being positively prophetic in our own lives and the self-talk that we have with ourselves, how are we going to carry that into our children's lives, right? Prayer, action, and being a provider, right? And not just our presence, but our presence and being present.
That's right. That's right.
So, but you about to get me on another hour roll that I have right now, but I definitely want to get advanced booking for a round 2, because I have been at speaking engagements where in opportunities they were like, I don't know who invited him, but he ain't coming back again.
No, you're coming back to Black Fathers Now, my man. For real, for real. And fellas, I want to make sure that y'all really, really, really check out cbma.org/join and go join Campaign for Black Male Achievement. Visit blackmaleachievement.org, but then also bmafunders.org. Check out all of those things. And then also reach out. If you come across Shawn Dove on social media, reach out to him and let him know you heard about his story, his journey, some of his ups, some of his downs. Let him know you heard about some of his story here on Black Fathers Now, the podcast. And definitely
let me give them the Twitter handle.
Okay.
So my Twitter handle is Dove Soars, like flying, right? That's Twitter. And Instagram, it's Shawn, SHAWN _Dove, like the bird. And yes, thank you for saying that, brothers. If you heard something that moved you or someone else needs to hear and boomerang, whether it was from me or from Brother Mike, because the host was dropping gem for gem.
We going back and forth, brother.
That's
you
right,
drop one, I drop one. That's how we roll.
And let's share it, right? Let's share it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I thank you, man, for taking time out of your schedule. Like I said, it's been a long time coming, but the best things come to those who wait. I'm a firm believer of that. And this particular conversation is going to help somebody. I got a feeling it's going to help more than just one somebody. It's going to help a lot of somebodies. And I thank you so much for sharing your journey. And, from this point forward, man, go ahead and consider Campaign for Black Male Achievement part of the Black Fathers Now family. So anything that we can do to help push the narrative forward, to help you in anything, any of these, like you mentioned, ideas come and you're ready to run with them, holler at us, man. We're here. We're ready to help you out any way, shape, or form, man.
Well, I dropped the one that we can start with, not too far from you. The Black Fathers Now retreat at the Alex Haley Farm in Clinton, Tennessee.
Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about.
20 minutes from you, right?
Yeah, that's not far at all, man.
Not far at all, right?
And like you mentioned, there's power in putting it out there. So the Black Fathers Now retreat at the Alex Haley Farm is going to happen. And me and Shawn are going to be in the works on that.
So yeah, consider Campaign for Black Male Achievement as a partner, a sponsor partner.
Look at here. Hey, y'all heard it here first. We're gonna make it happen. I love it.
I'm not putting no numbers out there. I'm just saying I gotta find this dollar bill.
What trip, man.
I gotta find that.
Oh man, and it's the funniest thing. Look, so those watching on YouTube will know what we're talking about. Those that are listening to the podcast via audio are gonna be like, what are these brothers talking about with this dollar bill? But either way, go back to YouTube and watch it and listen to it, and you'll get what we're talking about. All right.
Listen, I appreciate you, brother. I love you, and stay strong. You are transforming and helping folks that you will never ever get a chance to meet. You are helping children of fathers in an indirect way, right? So you're having a generational impact with Black Fathers Now, and so I appreciate you for that.
Man, I thank you so much. I receive it. I love you back, brother. And you keep up the good work. You keep doing the great work. And you and I are going to do some big things in the future. We appreciate this, man.
Right. God bless.
God bless you too, man.
Man. Take care.
All right, you too, brother. Now, fellas, as always, make sure to visit blackfathersnow.com, subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, YouTube, anywhere you listen to podcasts, make sure to check this out. Also visit blackfamilyapparel.com to grab some dope apparel to celebrate the nuances of the Black family. And until next time, y'all be blessed, well, and wise. And I'll holler at you. Peace. Yo, fellas, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And always visit blackfathersnow.com, as well as follow Black Fathers Now on virtually every social media platform you can think of. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, everywhere. Just follow us and engage with us, man. Look forward to hearing from you. And I guess until next time, I'll holler at you. Peace.